anti-distraction.
Morning. I'd like to call the Tuesday, November 26th Airport Authority meeting to order. Agenda is as published, and we'd like to start with approval of the minutes from November 12th as published. Any corrections or additions?
No, just a comment. Did we get an answer back from Commissioner Pepcorn regarding his, whether he is stepping off the Airport Authority as liaison?
No, we have not. Thank you.
Maybe we should reach out to him and do, just a letter and just say, something, I don't know. But just to recognize that he said this, but we are confused whether that means you're going off, which means that the mayor should be appointing someone else. I mean, it'd be nice to get some clarification.
We can do that. I can make a phone call to the mayor's office.
Mr. Chairman, and representation.
Yes. Yes. Will do. Any other comments on the meeting minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and approval. All signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Airport vouchers. We have airport vouchers, $47,863.30. Entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
and a second. And any discussion on those items? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Lynn,
Aye.
Engen,
Aye.
Lind,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Hogan.
Aye. Okay, number 3 is individual vouchers. We have A through D. Anybody want to make a motion for all of those or separate?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion, second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
What was the co-op marketing program with Jet Center?
We've done that for quite a few years. Darren Hall is here, the Galactic Marketing Director for Fargo Jet Center. We co-market with them at dispatcher conferences and other
Okay.
MBAA things, literally all over the world. And if you want to give a quick recap, Darren, to bring them up to speed.
Yeah, so we're really grateful for the partnership with the Airport Authority, and when we really instituted the program, I don't know how many years ago it's been,
Probably about 10.
it was really an effort to help us reach out further, and we believe in our marketing program that if we can be in front of people, that's going to have our best opportunity to bring people to Fargo. And so that's really what the program does in helping us get out more often than we would be able to do on our own.
Okay.
Can you just recap a few of the places that we're at overseas?
Yeah, so the European Business Aviation Conference and Expo, it's in Geneva, Switzerland. It's been there for 15 years. We've been there almost for 10 years now. We attend that show, and every business aviation operator in Europe attends that show. So there's about 10 to 12,000 people in attendance. We go and exhibit. We co-exhibit with our fuel supplier, Avfuel, that puts us on the main aisle in the show. And so we'll spend our time in the booth, and then all the flight departments, most of them will exhibit also. So we'll spend half our time going to their booth to exhibit, and then the other time meeting with flight departments that are maybe just walking the show. And that's just one show. There's really a combination of another successful one Sean kind of alluded to was the schedulers and dispatchers show up. So if you think of most flight departments will have somebody that schedules or dispatches at aircraft, they have a conference just for those people. And so we want to be there to represent Fargo and Fargo Jet Center to say, choose Fargo when you're coming through this area. We've identified about 15 airports that we compete with outside of the traffic that's coming to Fargo. If you're coming from Seattle to New York, you can stop in one of probably 10 other cities on that route. And we're out telling the story of why should you come to Fargo. And it's been really successful with the program over 10 or so years. So.
Okay. Great, thanks.
I think if I could expand on that, I was at a global leadership luncheon yesterday. It's called the Global Leadership Coalition. It was at the Fargo Air Museum, and there were business people from all around the state, and it was the Global Leadership Coalition is a bipartisan group that is headquartered out of Washington, D.C., but they're really focused on the world and business. And so we had many business leaders from across North Dakota. Senator Kramer hosted it yesterday. But the president and CEO I had dinner with the night before, and I mentioned the Jet Center, and I mentioned the airport. I mentioned how many flights we have a day, how many passenger flights, how many freighters, and then why the Jet Center is so popular here, and some of the things we do, and the staff that was there all from Washington D.C. was like flabbergasted. I said, you know, we just don't think of North Dakota being a destination to fly back from Europe before you go to L.A. and stop at, you know. So just, I think this marketing thing is a good thing for this airport.
The only other thing I'll mention is the Sun Electric, that's the final payment, and that's made a huge, huge difference in the South GA in terms of lighting. It's day and night difference. It's really incredible. So we already have a request from Fargo Jet Center to do the same on the North GA ramp, and we'll put that on the to-do list as well to upgrade that to the LED. It's huge. UPS, I don't know, Darren, we've heard from UPS, they probably don't even have to use their night portable light generators anymore. It's that much improved. So it worked out well.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call for the question.
Lynn?
Aye.
Engen?
Aye.
Lind?
Yes.
Clark?
Aye.
Hogan?
Aye. Okay, discussion number 4 is regarding our banking and depository services. We talked about this a little bit last time, and we said that we were going to make a selection today. Any thoughts from board members? Anyone?
Well, as I mentioned last time, after really doing a pretty thorough analysis, I thought First International Bank was probably, they had not only higher interest rates for us on our money that's deposited, but the package that they put together was very easy to follow, included some services that others did not include, and that's just my input though.
Okay, anyone care to make a motion on the selection?
Well, I kind of agree with Tammy, and I poured through them and I reviewed them again last night just to make sure I didn't miss anything, and I came up with the same conclusion. So based on my investigation, I would put forth a motion that we select First International Bank for our banking services.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I agree. After review, I went back through them again, and I came to the same conclusions.
Okay. All right, call for the question. Let's do a roll call on that.
Lynn?
Aye.
Engen?
Aye.
Lind?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Hogan?
Aye. Okay, the only caveat will be we are still in discussion or negotiation and mediation with the city. So there may be another outcome here that we're not going to be in charge of. So let's we'll select the bank, but know that there may be some delay. Not much.
You know,
we hope.
Chairman, I would make sure though, that we keep in mind that we need to, if whatever the arrangement, if we continue to work and collaborate with the city, that we do need separate accounts, and the funds cannot be commingled.
Yes, that's the FAA is pretty adamant about that, and we're not following that procedure right now. Thank you. Okay, moving to number 5, discussion regarding IT communication service. Darren, you want to talk on that a little bit?
Darren's got a handout for you.
Well, we got a little more information from the last meeting.
And again, IT services, I'm assuming we can't really, that's going to take some contracting and some purchasing of hardware, and
So if you look at the summary here, I mean, we got 4 companies for IT services. Consolidated Communications, they'll do the fiber coming in, and then they can do the phone lines, they can do a phone system if we so choose. Pretty much all 4 companies, they're all great companies in town locally. They're all really kind of in the ballpark. Some offer a little more services than others do. But you can see, I mean, the server is about the same rate. Configuring all the PCs, the network configuration, everything, to switch everything from the city to the airport. It's all kind of the same ballpark. So, I got verification on all the security features and whatever all these companies have, and some of these companies, and maybe Rick even knows, I mean, they work with financial institutions and so on. So, security shouldn't really be an issue or a concern, especially for the type of information we handle up here. So, and they all know the timeline of everything, the negotiations with the city or whatever, and they're all just waiting. There's not a big hurry on their part to get something done. I mean, it'll be a transition, and there's a lot of answers we don't know yet until we actually make the decision. Then we'll have to work with city IT to completely determine what we need out here and so on. So.
So the main thing is, this is kind of the update on where we're at. For me, in the initial review, corporate technologies kind of rises to the top. We don't have to make that decision today. But this transition, if it does occur, isn't going to happen on January 1st. This is probably going to be a 60 to 90 day transition, working with Darren and IT and folks from whichever company that we pick to make sure that all the files that are on the server from the city are transferred to our server, and just sort through that. Regardless, SNL will continue to do our Wi-Fi in the terminal. That doesn't change. They've provided our Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi for
Well, the equipment.
the equipment.
Yeah, Consolidate already has. We have fiber from Consolidate for our public Wi-Fi, and they all know. Once they're selected, they'll look at what we have, what we need, and the best way to do it. Consolidated says we already have a feed in. Maybe we could use that feed just up the bandwidth. So there might be some cost savings on that end of it.
So we have 10 PCs or 12? 10?
I think there's 12 in the fire department.
Yeah. We have 2 over there. So it's not a real big system. It's in the scope of things. It's pretty small. It's very manageable. The one-time cost, like you say, you see across the top of the file server, they're all within about $800 of each other.
And there's like our phone system, we can keep it, contract with High Point, or Consolidated, they come with a brand new phone system, and you don't buy any equipment up front, it's just so much a month. So
The current-
they said what we have is easy, so they're not too concerned about it, just the lead time on getting equipment. So
I think the current phone system, even when we stayed with the city, they're probably in the process of trying to upgrade that as well. It's how many years old now, our ShoreTel system?
I'm gonna guess at least 5. I mean, it's probably coming to the end of its life where they're looking to replace anyways.
So if you keep the same phones, that's one thing. Upgrading the phones, that's another.
Everything's voice over IP now, so it's more or less just plug it into a switch and it works.
And you've made contact with the city to know that there may be a switch over, and whoever we select will be able to work with them?
Well, not really. But they know.
That'll be part of the discussion coming up next month.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the update as it is. Like I say, we're fortunate there's really good companies here in town, and any of them can do the work for us on the IT side.
Yeah, I talked to somebody up in Grand Forks Airport, and they're completely separate, and they've done work with some of these companies.
So I think we should defer this until after the action by the city, focused on mediation. But thanks for the information. Okay, moving on to number 6, airport construction security update.
Well, last week we had the FAA staff from Minneapolis and Bismarck here, along with Aeronautics Commission staff, representatives from Mead and Hunt. Just they're in the habit now of doing monthly updates with a number of airports as far as programming and so forth, which has been very beneficial. And we focused a lot on the capital improvement plan that we have out there, and I think either at the next meeting or for sure the December 17th meeting, we'll have an updated CIP plan now that we know more information about the snow removal equipment plan. we have a little bit more idea in terms of how the FAA wants to help us in programming a possible terminal expansion project that hopefully we can undertake in 2021 or at the latest 2022. The important part for us is that we're currently a non-hub airport, and we're right on the threshold. We're like within 2 or 3 airports of being designated a small hub airport. If you're designated a small hub airport, the amount of federal funding available for terminal expansion really is non-existent. As a non-hub, you can qualify for potentially up to $20 million in discretionary money, but even the $20 million is in question right now in the interpretation of the Airport Improvement Program handbook for as far as eligibility of projects. There's a possibility that the expansion we completed in 2008, any discretionary money that we received in that expansion could go towards that $20 million cap. We don't know. Some airports and some engineers and experts believe that it's $20 million per modification project. That hasn't been sorted out with the FAA. They didn't have an answer for us when we met last week. So we are, our boardings through September, we're growing at a faster rate than those 2 or 3 airports that were ahead of us on that cutoff for the small hub, non-hub. So we'll see where it goes, but I think in working with the state, working with the FAA, we'll try and get some funds programmed for 2021, assuming that the terminal expansion study or the terminal study that NEDNUT will have before us, the scope of work here at our next board meeting, or maybe the December 17th meeting, is in order, and then we'll start them on their journey of a 9 to 10 month terminal study that the FAA requires. That will also include financial forecasting for whatever the expansion is going to be, and the wild guess is about 30 to 35 million to add on that space towards the east, plus some apron expansion to accommodate additional boarding bridges and other interior improvements. So we'll see where that comes in, but the FAA is willing to work with us to try and program some discretionary dollars in 2021. So if you receive discretionary for a terminal expansion while you're a non-hub, that locks you in for the duration of the project, even if you change to a small hub during the construction process. So it's really no different than if you go back to, we were designated as a small hub some years ago. Boardings went down, so we went back to non-hub status. That's why we chose to move forward with the Dakota Drive, the access road rehabilitation. As a non-hub, that's eligible. As a small hub, it's not. So we kind of lucked out in that environment there. So any questions on that or where we're at? Okay.
Sooner than later,
Yeah.
be better.
The only other thing, if you haven't looked at the flooring that was replaced down in the restaurant, please walk down there and take a look in the public area. The carpet came out, there was some flooring, and Joan did the majority of the work with CBM or the Skydyne folks to pick out the pattern and the flooring and stuff, and it looks really nice. So we've had a lot of compliments on that. So I think it's a lot easier for them to manage than someone spilling their pancake syrup on the carpet and trying to get that clean. So, Jeff, do you have anything else as far as working on? They'll have at some point, we're going to be bidding on a snow removal equipment building. Those plans are about 95% finished.
Those will go to the FAA tomorrow.
Okay, so the FAA will start to do the eligibility review of that snow removal equipment building, find out what is eligible, what's not eligible. We'll get that report, I would say, probably in January, I would guess.
I would say so, yeah. That was in 60 to 90 days.
And then once that is all swept out, we'll look at the financing of it, get it out to bid, and then the cargo apron expansion project, that'll be out the door sometime. We do have some answers from the city of Fargo that we received this week on what they would charge for us to dispose glycol fluid, which is by city ordinance, so it's really no surprise it's in the city ordinance. We'll be working with them on getting that project together as well for removing glycol once that becomes necessary.
Did we ever decide if it was going to be trucked up to the lagoons or if it was going to be pipelined? Was that ever definitive?
I believe now they want it brought right to the plant. Versus the lagoons.
It'll be trucked for the interim, and then long-term plan is actually piped up to the lagoons.
Right. So initially a lot of trucking. And we got jetway services, there's other tanker options out there, but probably jetway has big tanker trucks that would remove that effluent from us. Now the other thing is that if we do testing of what we're capturing in the reservoir, that to be determined how big that is. Right now initially it's about 200,000 gallons. If there's enough testing of that and it's below certain levels, we can also just let it flow as it has in the past. But it's, the city fees aren't that significant in terms of the cost, depending on how much we do. And I think Dean Maricos from Mead Hunt will run some projections based on our history of bike hall usage to see what those fees would be on an annual basis, so.
And we had an internal call yesterday at Mead Hunt, and just to follow up on the response from the city, because our team has some questions from the wastewater treatment plant, so we just need to follow up with plans on those, and then we'll, after they reach out.
If we have a storage tank and just hold it for a while and let it deoxidize a little bit, is that a plan also maybe to just hold it for a little bit so we can let it break down a little bit and then send it on?
I would have to ask Dean about that, but I think if that was the case, we need to iterate it, so.
Yeah, it's possible. We'd have to work with the state health department and others on what those target thresholds are for each of the BOD, I don't know what all the terminology is. There's chemical oxygen demand,
BOD and COD.
Yeah. There's all those technical terms that we'd have to look at. But nonetheless, what we're going to put in place is a lot better than what we're doing now environmentally. So that's a big goal of this whole process. Anything else on that? I know Mr. Negron joined us now that it's the holiday season. Is there any TSA updates? How are things going so far?
So we're staffed up for the holiday peaks that we're expecting. You know, we're looking at watching the weather closely, but we're ready for that. Depending on what happens, we saw some increase in loads even this morning. People trying to get ahead of weather. But we're ready for that. I just was briefed actually. I just got off a call. DOT, I guess, is looking at doing something for Real ID. Remember, Real ID will be a requirement for driver's license come October 1 of 2020. That will come sooner than we think. And so what they're going to be doing, I guess, starting in January, DOT is going to start offering Saturdays for people to be issued Real IDs, and they're going to do that January through October of 2020. We'll certainly continue to speak to that at our TDC. There's information at the back end of the checkpoint. By all means, let your other stakeholders know about that. When we receive information on that, we'll sure get that out. But I think that'll be very helpful. Come October 1, 2020, that could be an interesting morning for those who delay and do not obtain the Real ID. ID requirements are going to be stricter come that date. So by all means, promote that. Encourage your folks to get a Real ID sooner rather than later.
We've been pushing that out on social media. State Aeronautics is pushing it out. The airlines are pushing it out, so nobody should be surprised. And the advice to go to when you go to the state agency to get it is to have an appointment. If you have an appointment and all of the documents, there's 3 different things you need, but look at that list. If you have everything that they need, you're in and out of there in 8 to 10 minutes. If you don't have an appointment, I've heard up to 2 hours and 45 minutes. So, but if you have an appointment, it works out really well.
I did mine already, and I booked it. I had to book it 2 to 2.5 months in advance. And then we had all the documentation. You know, I think the thing is, first, I can't emphasize enough booking it in advance. Truly, it was booked out 2 months. So I think for people to go online and book it as soon as possible, it would be good.
My daughter just got her driver's license, and we booked in July to get an October date. So.
We're also pushing TSA pre-check this time of the year, well, all the time, but TSA pre-check. Global entry, if you travel international, get your global entry because you automatically get TSA pre-check with that. I just did my renewal online. It took 5 to 6 minutes to renew mine as I was at the end of the 5-year period. And the update with global entry is that the Pembina port of entry, which oversees our Fargo port here, is in the process of training the 2 officers or agents here in Fargo to provide global entry interviews. As it sits right now, you have to drive to the border or go to Minneapolis or another airport to do your global entry interview, which is also a 10-minute or less process. They've held workshops here in Fargo that have been very successful for global entry. They don't plan to have one of those until after the first of the year, but I think in the interim what they're looking at doing is training the 2 Fargo officers to provide that service while they have office hours. So that'll be a big change once that is completed here, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 months. The only other update is I believe all of our employees have been onboarded to the Pro Resources system. Joan kind of took over getting everyone onboarded, fire department and so forth, so we're ready to make that change. Been in contact with North Dakota PERS, so that's ready, so the employees that are in this account can go to our account. Things to be set up, seem to be set up in that arena. I think the first week of December, or starting the first week in December, Pro Resources and then Dave Middow Associates will come out and present benefits options. If you probably saw the information that was set out that if for some reason the city won't allow us to continue in the current health insurance plan, which Blue Cross Blue Shield is willing to allow us to,
Sorry, that's me.
which Blue Cross Blue Shield is willing to allow us if the city would consent to allow us to stay in the current health insurance plan for up to 1 year, knowing that this hopeful transition or very likely transition to North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund Association Health Plan will take place sometime in mid-2020 or at the latest October 2020. That's something that I think the mediators will have to discuss if they're willing to allow us, because it doesn't cost the city a penny. It's all airport funds if we continue the current health plan. So if not, then I've sent you some information about what the updated 2020 rates on the Blue Cross Blue Shield Platinum plan. That's a traditional plan that would be available. And as much as we desire to offer the high deductible health savings account option right now, I think that's something that we'll hold off on until we get our feet on the ground with where we sit here in the next 30 to 60 days. So, but that will be an option at some point in the future to do a high deductible health savings account. But at this time, I think the advice is to just stay with the traditional plan, whether it's the current plan that we have now or roll to the Platinum plan, which, as we all know, does cost more money, but it appears to be a much better plan than what is currently out there. So any questions on that part? Accounting-wise, we're still engaged with Balance CPA, Jamie over there. Just the question of if there's enough time from the time of mediation to January 1st to set up all the accounts in QuickBooks Pro Online. That's something that we'll have to take a look at, but that transition will be fairly simple to do. And then working with, if we do that, working with Steve and the crew at First International to get the account set up, that's going to be very simple to do, and we'll make progress. So I think we're in a good position right now to move forward as we desire.
Jordan, can you tell us how many badges you've got issued to UPS and FedEx on employee side now?
UPS probably has 120 to 130. FedEx is pretty steady at about 100.
Okay. So we have some part-time, obviously.
Yeah, there's the majority of them for UPS are part-time. I think FedEx is a majority as well, but they have some full-time members as well.
Very good.
So they started now with the 57 that comes through at like 2:30 in the morning now. I don't know where it continues on to, but it does. Yesterday we got a call that they're increasing the number of feeders from 15. They'd like to go to 17 to 19 feeders just for the volume between now and the first of the year. But we don't really have much room down in our South General Aviation area for that volume of feeders. Quite a few of the feeders will launch early in the morning, drop off packages, come back and pick up another load and go, which it really hasn't been done before. So they're putting a maximum strain on the feeder operators that they do have at a pretty significant cost to the company.
Yeah, that's not cheap.
Just in the last few days, UPS did pick an architect for the Fargo and Cedar Rapids, Iowa projects. It's a Fargo architect to do those for them. And I think the architect has 90 days to get the plans and specs ready and out to bid, so they can take bids on their facility probably in the February-March timeframe, and then be ready to start as soon as the frost is out of the ground this spring with their facility. Their primary feeder, Bemidji Aviation, is also looking at a hangar to be built next to the corporate air hangar. They are working with a local contractor as well to get their project ready to go and out to bid as well. So time will tell. There'll be a lot of activity next spring and summer. So that's all I've got.
Okay. Anyone, anything else? Hearing nothing, meeting's adjourned.